episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to this Friday edition of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And I said it yesterday with Dave Arenberg, the Florida State Attorney, and I'll say it again with Fil and Scott. Two men of this stature, with their career backgrounds, I would normally never wear a hat and look the way I do. I have respect. I was taught to have respect as a young man by my father and my mother. Normally, I should be in a suit when I speak to Fil and Scott, but typically, at least, I look somewhat respectable. But I've got the hat on because the COVID, and I haven't been feeling well, and I'm at the home studio. So it is Friday. It is hard to believe. It was a week ago today that I was saying to Fil and Scott, I hope the COE does not drag me to a party that night, which she did. And I squarely blame her for part of this, because instead of resting, look how well rested Fil looks right now. His hair is perfectly coiffed, smiling. Looks like look how well. Fil, what are you doing? You look, I gotta say, I think you look better here in Houston than you do on the Big Island. Are you getting massage appointments? Are you getting hot stone treatments?
No. It's just a different look. But no, I thank you for the compliments, but no, there's nothing particularly special going on here, although I do cut the hair and trim the beard back and all that good stuff and wear my more business-oriented attire. So, but this has been a good week. It's been a good week. We did a lot of things, very productive week, and we had a trial this week. I was working with an attorney on an indecency with a child case.
That's horrible.
And we got a not guilty, which is what we were striving for. This was a case where he didn't do it, and it all worked out. So it was a good week. Good week for justice.
Glad to hear that. I'm hoping my week next week I can say the same thing. But this past week, I've just been rolling about my bed, waiting for this thing to pass, and can't quite say the same. Laura Werner says, especially looking forward to what Fil has to say. By the way, that logo on his shirt is for Kindred Spirits Investigations. If you believe that something untoward is going on in your life, you call Fil Waters, and his company, Kindred Spirits Investigations, can figure it all out. Especially looking forward to what Fil has to say. He could not get a word in edgewise on News Nation yesterday with Ashley Banfield. Sorry to hear that, Fil. Didn't see it. Scott Duffy, before the hate mail comes flying in fast and furious, I have to hear you speak. How was your week, Scott?
I'm just confused by that last part of that statement. Fil not being able to get a word in edgewise.
Oh yeah. Well,
Phil, what happened?
Scott, have you ever been on with Ashley?
I have not.
Well, Joel has. You've been on with her, right?
I have not been on with. I know Ashley. I know,
right?
Actually. Yeah.
So, so we were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and dead guys, and oh my gosh, she had quite a felony murder. I mean, she had all sorts of things going on, and I just spoke as I always do. I spoke the truth through my experience about my observations in this case. And she was quite
Let me think about this a minute.
Quite interruptive. Is that a word? Yes.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a word, but it's close enough. But let me do this for a minute. Criminal justice solving cases. Fil Waters, Ashley Banfield. Phil. Oh wait, Phil's up here, and Ashley doesn't exist in terms of. She does look. Ashley does a good job. She likes her
No,
rating.
I like Ashley, and in fact, I mean, she keeps having me back, and there have been several times where I've just not, I'm the other side of that coin, and I understand what she's doing. I get it, and so she's in fact she's contacted me personally when she had I got cut off suddenly one time, and she sent me a text and said, "Look, I'm sorry about that, blah blah blah." So yeah, I mean, I get it. And it is always interesting on the show to how long. I always try to figure how much can I say before I know she's going to, come in there and, that's enough of that. Let's get back on topic. So, yeah.
Well, she's I know Ashley, believe it or not, if one can believe this, I think from the mid 90s when she was an anchor at MSNBC. Fil and Scott, when you work at network television, here's a little secret. There's no one that knows more about what is going on in the building than the hair and makeup artists. And therefore, I used to hang with them. That was my move. It's like you get to a new city, you go in a cab, right? They know everything, the cab drivers. But when you're in a network news environment, no one knows more than the hair and makeup artist. And so I used to hang, and Ashley Banfield used to be in there all the time. And that's how I got to know her sort of peripherally. And we would, I guess the word is gossip. We would gossip, not, all of us would gossip, including, well, Ashley a little bit, but us, about everything going on in the network news world. But no one knows what is going on better. Look at this. Joel spent his time shadowing and learning all he can from makeup and hair. It makes sense now. Yes. I used to spend more time. I can even remember exactly where you guys, one of the most amazing things is how network news divisions can spend money. By the way, there's this new company, The Messenger, this new media company. Well, they launched a year ago and they are out of business. I was just reading. They spent over $50 million in a year. Surviving the Survivor basically does the same thing that they do to some extent with 2 people, 3 people. And my point is they spend money like it's going out of water. MSNBC, when it first launched, was in a warehouse in Secaucus, New Jersey. Fil and Scott, when I tell you, I'll find old photos of this and I'll put them on Surviving the Survivor. It was something like an 80,000 square foot warehouse where MSNBC used to be. It was because back in the day, it was a joint venture between Microsoft and NBC, and they wanted to wow the world. And they built a studio in front of the newsroom with this thing called an intake center where all the video in the world would come in. That was like back in this is 1995. It was all glass encased. They must have spent $400 million to build this place, and it probably has not recouped its profits yet. So why I went off on that tangent, I'm not 100% sure, but it's Friday. Pat Ferguson.
Well, I'll back up your makeup stuff.
Please do.
When I was doing my show, when I was taping my show, my makeup gal was my therapist.
Yes, that's it. They're therapists. Although Phil, I know you may not be aware, but the term gal, it's okay for you because you're an old school homicide detective. If I said gal, I'd be instantly canceled. You would never hear my name again. You'd say, Joel who? But,
well, I care greatly what people think.
There you go. Look at this, Pat Ferguson. Joel, you look so good in white shirts. Just my opinion. I don't know that I've ever seen myself in a white shirt. I'm not sure that Pat Ferguson has, but I'm curious. I'll wear a white shirt one day. I'm far too pasty right now. Scott Duffy, I'm getting way too nervous. How come you're are you just taking it all in today, Scott?
Yes, I think I feel like the hair and makeup person today. I'm
Oh,
I'm listening, taking it all in.
Scott, when you do your appearances at Fox and Philly, which I see and they're phenomenal, do you opt for makeup at least, not necessarily hair, but do you put a little powder on when you go?
Never been offered. I get shoved to the corner. No, they're
Yeah,
very nice. No.
local news, by the way, is not big on offering makeup, but when you go to the networks, they throw it on you. Mia Bida would like to know, how is Chi Chi the chinchilla?
Chi-Chi's doing great. Thanks for asking me, Abito.
And Scott Duffy, it was a bittersweet moment. Last night I took my kids to the pet store in a state of delirium. We've got some big news on the show today, and I don't even know when or how to break it, but we may or may not be having a new member of the family join us today. A new family member, and I'm going to let that announcement come more organically later on. But the long story short, we were preparing for this new family member, and my daughter said to me, "That looks just like Scott Duffy's furry little rat." And I said, "What are you talking about?" They said, "That thing." And I said, "Oh, that's a chinchilla." And I proceeded to speak to the woman at Pet Supermarket. That's what it's called here. It's a big chain in South Florida, Pet Supermarket. And Scott, she told me, and it brought a tear to my eye, that this particular chinchilla was born missing a toe or two. And so they're sending it back to the breeder or whoever makes chinchillas. And I felt at once saddened and uplifted because they're getting it the help that it needs. But I thought to myself, why wouldn't someone buy a chinchilla missing a toe or two? Does that impact the chinchilla's life? He seemed fine to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what or how many they're supposed to have. Be interesting to see. Did it look like it couldn't walk, jump?
It was in its what do you call it? It was in its wheel and it was flying around.
Yeah.
And then
Healthy.
Scott, when it saw my kids, it immediately went into this little log to hide. It could only see its nose. Is that what they do? Do they hide in holes and stuff?
Well,
Is that
they
what
love
do?
jumping into things. So at first, and then once they get to know you, then they grab on to the bars of their cage and try to get you to come over. They're very
By the
social.
This is also, I say it every week, but this is the point of the show, Fil Waters, where I always wonder, whoever's tuning in for true crime and they've made it 13 minutes in are wondering what is going on and what are these people talking about. I always wonder if that's what is happening, and I think it is. Okay, so let's jump into the first story here. It doesn't take a HIV vaccine scientist to figure out that we're going to be talking about the Kansas City Chiefs situation. The fans, not the players. It'd be a lot worse, I think, if the players were found frozen and dead because the Super Bowl is coming up. But equally bad, these are human beings as well, and they were found frozen and dead. The victims here, Fil Waters, Clayton McGeeney, 36, Ricky Johnson, 38, Dave Harrington, 37. They were, found 2 days after the last regular season game. So now there's a lot of breaking news, the least of which, or the most of which, I should say, is the toxicology reports came back, Fil Waters. When we talked last week, people were saying it could be 8 weeks, it could be 3 months, it could be 4, 5, 6 months. Why do we get these initial tox reports back? And what's the difference between an initial tox report, Fil Waters, and an uninitial tox report, Fil Waters?
Well, no doubt the high profile part of this particular incident, this case, was the tox results were expedited, and they have the ME will do this preliminary testing. They're going to do further testing to verify that what they have found here initially is in fact what is true and correct. So I'm not surprised at all that that's come about. And we only know what we know about the toxicology test because of what I understand is a friend of the family had, as I understand it, had talked to Ashley Banfield and one of her reporters, Scott. I can't remember. I think his name's Scott. I can't remember his last name.
Adam Capriello, that guy.
Yes, Adam. There you go.
Yeah.
And
Alex.
Is it Alan? Yeah, Alex, whatever his name.
Alex. Yes. And shout out to him. He's doing good work.
He was on the show last night, and he's the one that broke the preliminary results of this tox test. So as a result of talking to this either family member or friend of the family, and that was communicated to them because they had a meeting with the prosecutors, and they passed this information on to them. Which, what I noticed was after that was done, that the kind of shrill accusations have suddenly grown silent. And I think this is good that the prosecutors have brought the family in, have talked to them about what they have found initially. I'm sure the totality of the case has been discussed as well, and they will continue to update them. And really, in the big picture of this whole incident, the only people on the planet that deserve these updates are the families. All the rest of us, it's none of our freaking business. Mm. So, everybody what's the guy's name that the house, Willis, is that his name?
Jordan Willis, the renter.
Jordan Willis.
Yeah.
They want to hang him at noon, and I'm always amazed at people's response when they have no knowledge. They just say stuff. So now we have some information, and this is not official, by the way. So we haven't seen the tox tests, the results. We're being communicated these things. So, and if it is accurate, cocaine in the blood, fentanyl, and good grief, wouldn't you know it, got a little marijuana in there too, a little cannabis, a little THC going on. And I don't know if there was because we weren't told if there was any alcohol. Now on the tox test, it will show as ethanol. So I didn't see where anybody has said that there was any of that, but I would have to believe there's some adult beverages being consumed as well. So for something like this to happen, these are all grown men. These aren't people, these are all grown men at a gathering for a football game for a team that they obviously love. And when they won the game, of course, they're even more exuberant in their fandom for the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is not going to be the first time that they have had these celebratory gatherings and these football games. This one, however, got way out of hand, obviously.
Yeah.
And these men ingested these substances willingly. And the result is that they overdosed or were intoxicated to a level on several different substances that all had contradictory effects on them. Cocaine gets your system going. Fentanyl is something that gets your system lowered. So fentanyl, it's for pain. It can cause sleep symptoms. I mean, there's a whole lot of things about fentanyl, and then you got the THC. You got the dope that it's going to have that paranoid effect. It's going to have the hallucinogenic effect. So, and then if they were drinking on top of that alcohol of some kind, then you've got another substance that's going to cause you to relax. So, gosh, the perfect storm for something like this to happen. And when people ingest these substances, the body, this has been my experience when I worked narcotics, when I would see these happening, these types of events occurring, and the medical examiner explaining to me what has happened to the body, the body will heat up internally. And I saw this most pervasive in the use of MDMA, ecstasy, methylene dioxymethamphetamine. And I used to work security for rave parties, and that is the drug of choice: ecstasy and LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide. That is the drug. Those are the drugs of choice at those gatherings. And there were a couple of things they always had at rave parties. They always had pacifiers, because when people use that stuff, they grind their teeth. So they had boxes of pacifiers that they'd hand out. And they'd also hand out candy. Because
Phil, you said that you were a body, you worked the doors at rave parties. Did I hear that right, or do I have COVID?
There were at the time that the rave party started up, HPD, and the one.
Ooh, it's breaking up a little.
We're on the campus at the University of Houston. So we were hired these parties. And what I witnessed there was the people taking, of course, we didn't see it, but these people ingesting ecstasy and acid, LSD, sucking on pacifiers, because they needed the sugar rush, and in the bathrooms, stripping down butt naked. And this was in the middle of winter, and it was a cold night in Houston. And one guy ran out of the building and threw himself on the pavement, which was concrete, and it was cold, trying to cool his body down.
Wow.
Now, there's always a little humor in everything, but this guy got his little tallywhacker stuck in an expansion joint in the street. So he was telling us, he was calling us stupid, and we were ignorant, and we were just nothing but a bunch of effing cops, and blah blah blah. I think he was even bragging about his college degree. I mean, just babbling silliness.
Wow.
And about the fourth or fifth time he called us stupid, I just looked at him and I said, "Really?" I said, "You're butt naked, face down in the street, with your tallywhacker stuck in an expansion joint, and we're the ones that are stupid?" That kind of put him, that silenced him for a moment. But anyway, I digress. So the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, go ahead, Phil. No, go ahead, Phil. Finish off your thought.
The point I'm trying to make here is that this stuff causes the internal temperature of the body to increase. So I don't know if that's what happened here, and I'm waiting for the autopsy report, which will take some time. To get the final report, and I really want to see what their ruling is going to be for the cause of death. And just my experience, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical examiner. I'm just curious as to if this happened to them after they ingested this fatal cocktail of these different substances, and the reason why they were outside was because of what was happening internally. So they went outside to cool off. They sat down, and then as a result of the substances that they had ingested, they were intoxicated to the level that they passed out and then froze to death. So my curiosity about the autopsy, and this is just my observation and theory. So what I'm curious to see is from the autopsy report, if they died as a result of an overdose, or if they died, if they were intoxicated and passed out because of the degree of substances they had in them, and then they actually died from hypothermia.
Wow.
So that's what I'm most curious about, and I don't think it's a far stretch to say that the manner of death is going to be accidental, and then I'm waiting to see what the cause of death is going to be. So I think there was the word felony murder was bandied about. I think, Joel, you even said something to that degree in one of our text messages.
One of our text messages, yes.
This is in no way, shape, or form is even close to a felony murder. No way. No way.
I said it a little differently. I said if I was investigating this case, there'd be no trial. Home renter would be guilty. 3 consecutive life sentences. That's what I said. But I had very little.
And what was my response to that?
You're an idiot to me. Basically.
Yeah. I think it was, and that's why you're not in charge of anything. So something to that effect.
Correct. And I never should be, but I don't have the patience to do what you guys do. So I would just jump to conclusions. On a serious note, before I get back to an unserious note, these are the victims here. These guys are dead as a result of this. So these are family members and, children, sons, and uncles, things of that nature. The family still obviously devastated. There's still a lot to go through here. Scott Duffy, you are my hair and makeup artist today. I know I have COVID, but was Phil just talking about a guy's tallywhacker being stuck in the ground, or am I hallucinating? Am I hallucinating, or was Phil just talking about a tallywhacker? And also, could someone please tell me, would we spell tallywhacker 2 words? And is the whacker WHA or is whacker WACK on that? And is it 2 words? I Am Not T-Pain has got to make some sort of meme with Phil using the word tallywhacker.
It can be hyphenated.
It can or can't?
It can be.
Okay.
Is that a Texas term?
So, just to continue on with what Phil was saying, Scott Duffy. So this family member who asked to remain anonymous regarding the toxicology reports did say, again, to echo Phil's previous statement, that cocaine was found in there, fentanyl was found in there, THC, otherwise known as the marijuana, the Mary Jane, was in there. And Phil was telling us that it is the worst of the drugs last week. The family source says that level 10 fentanyl, Scott Duffy, level 10 fentanyl is enough to kill. The Kansas City 3, as they're known now, were at level 30. So 3 times the lethal dosage. I ask you every day, every week, every moment, are you surprised by this? But are you surprised by the concoction of drugs found in the system? That's number one. And then let's get to Annie K's question finally. How is it going to be determined, Scott Duffy, whether the drugs were ingested voluntarily? Was the host tested for drugs? Is it possible that this guy, Jordan Willis, shoved fentanyl into their mouths? Scott Duffy.
Boy, there's a lot packed in there.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, this is,
not the least of which is tallywhacker. But go ahead.
Yeah, let me look that up. I got to see it. It's so no, it doesn't surprise me. It's disturbing none the least. You're absolutely right. There are 3 deceased people that don't have to be deceased. I think as Phil and I were looking or being given what was publicly known last week, we're not surprised, and we're not going down the road that I think other shows and podcasters have gone down, that this is a murder and this is a double homicide, triple homicide, etc. I get that, and there's definitely, you're going to approach any death like this, especially because of all the circumstances, the fact that there's three as opposed to one, and those do add to it. But I'm extremely cautious, and because I've worked in the drug world for so long, I've seen a lot. I've seen everything Phil had described, and to see what the human body does go through together with the mind. And I will say this: it's still a phenomenon to me that when I was working drug investigations, and I've interviewed many high-level drug dealers, many that would not touch fentanyl. It was spoken about, it was heard about, it was in the market, but nowhere it is today. And they were saying, why would I kill my customer? I wanted strong enough to where they are going to feel the effects that obviously a drug user seeks it for, and then to keep coming back. And that just resonated. And that was every drug dealer saying the same thing. And then, of course, I would say 14, 15, we started to really see these epidemic to where stadium, right? In other words, 60, 70,000 people were dying a year, and it really wasn't capturing too much of attention. So this is extremely sad, but it is unfortunately becoming somewhat of the norm. People of all different walks of life. I've had doctors, nurses, lawyers walking the streets, drug addicted through one drug or another. So, you look at the faces, you look at that picture. It's it's a great social time in a moment of time, but then drugs get introduced, and then, of course, as we see today, fentanyl becoming part of the norm. And this is why it's scary. I mean, we may joke a little bit, and we'll definitely get viewers that say, oh, come on, marijuana, grow up and this and that, get with it. It's not that dangerous. Well, Phil and I have dealt with many years where many people have died, shot, killed as a result of marijuana. So that's why we bring those experiences to our thought of marijuana. Of course, so many people experiment and have absolutely no issues. So many people seek it medically and find great benefits to it, right? But in realm today, partying and whatnot, the fentanyl has found its way to where anybody of any type of drug can be gone just like that. And so thereby, I think we have to really think about this. Now, for the homicide aspect, I mean, that comes through interviewing. There are people who have survived, people who are part of this party who have walked away, as well as the host of the party. And of course, the host of the party has a lawyer for obvious reasons. But there are other witnesses that will be able to say, and a good interview should be able to find the credibility in, were they all partaking willingly and wantingly? And they may not have known per se that fentanyl was laced in something or another, or they might have. It will come through interviews. But this is unfortunately they're three of a huge number of ODs in this past year, and it's just it's unacceptable, but it is the reality.
This and the fentanyl scare is beyond any measure here. I am actually telling the COE something right now, live on the air, right now. If anyone's wondering, I'm going to get yelled at, and people are going to say, "Oh, you're rude to be doing that," but there's a reason. This photo we're looking at, this is Jordan Willis. This is the man who was renting that home in the bottom middle. He's since gone on to rehab, which we're going to talk about. Webfan has a question, and I love these triple Qs because it makes it easy for me to see, but it's let's send it Phil's way. 3-part question for guests, and I hope they're open-ended for Phil's sake, or for your sake. How do you obtain a controlled substance, fentanyl, Fil Waters, and bring it to the streets? Did the chemist, now this guy, Jordan Willis, is a chemist. Did the chemist get it from his lab? Will his employer start an investigation? Phil is either frozen or he is very meticulous.
I didn't know if you had any more commentary. I was waiting there.
Oh, I do actually. Hang on. Can you remember this question? Because I can't, but I want to bring this up for everyone because this is also important. From Jenny Benny, tallywhacker, a noun, vulgar slang, the penis, alteration probably influenced by whack, of earlier tallywag, perhaps from tally, counterpart, something that fits another thing.
Oh my gosh.
I honestly don't know if I'm just high on COVID or what is going on. McSpunky says a tallywhacker is a way old school term for eggplant. That's interesting, for an eggplant. Phil, do you remember this question? Because I don't remember it.
I do.
Okay.
Well,
by the way, one last thing. Beach Life says, don't get your tally in a wad. Go ahead, Phil.
The first question, how do you get fentanyl to the streets? Well, just like you get any controlled substance to the streets. You have a network. You've got a foundation for people that are distributing that stuff. It's coming in through most of it's being generated out of China, and it's coming through the southern borders. So, that's the big picture. And then once it gets distributed to the dealers at the lower level, then it starts getting farmed out to the people that want it. And, you made the comment about killing their clients. They don't give a crap about that. The problem is they work on a volume basis. And they have got thousands, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of clients, users that they're selling this stuff to. And they figure in the effect of deaths. So they could care less whether they're killing people. That's why they keep sending this stuff into the country. The United States they reap a big harvest of people that get addicted to all this crap that they're sending into the country. So no questions there about how does it get here. And again, they don't care about their clientele. If they cared about their clientele, they wouldn't be sending the crap in the country in the first place. So the second question was, did we think this Willis guy is manufacturing this stuff? I don't know. My thought is that there's sort of that possibility. But when you're talking about cocaine and fentanyl and the cannabis, the marijuana stuff, that seems to me to indicate, and we don't know who purchased all of these things. I think one of these victims, I read a year ago or a couple of years ago, had actually been arrested for possession of a controlled substance of some kind. I think one of them also has some sort of a pharmacy license, a pharmacist license that was expired or was about to expire, something of that nature. So, look, folks, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. These kinds of things don't happen in a vacuum. And I'm not trying to be heartless here, but look, this stuff is going to turn out. It was self-inflicted. To think that this guy here that we're showing on the screen, this Willis guy, somehow had some big plot that he was going to lace all of his friends' stuff with all of this and that and this. Look, I don't think there's any question that these guys knew what they were doing. They just didn't know to the extent that they were doing it. Because once you start that stuff, and the more you've got a stimulus, like a football game where your team is winning, and I'm just telling you, it's a perfect storm for something like this to happen.
Hmm.
And the comment was made here about how they die at the same time. We don't know that they died at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
We know they died in the same time frame, but we don't know the order in which these men passed away. So, look, I'm just telling you to start throwing stuff out there. Number one, it doesn't do any good for the investigation, and that department is investigating this case. Now, regarding his employers investigating anything, I would imagine that they're going to do their due diligence, because now where he works, when that is discovered, that's put up on the horizon now. Everybody's going to be looking at that. So I would imagine that his employers are going to conduct some kind of an internal investigation as to what he's been doing, what he might have been doing, and I'm sure that's going to happen. And worst case scenario is he may lose his job when it's over with.
Yeah.
If he's done anything within the confines of the company that is criminal in nature, then that'll be addressed. So there's a whole lot of moving parts here in this thing. And the bottom line is, as Scott said, the bottom line, it's just an incredible tragedy for these families.
Yep.
But this young man now, of course, he got a wake up call. What's he done? He's checked himself into a rehab.
Yep.
So I'm just saying, people need to take a breath here, and let's wait for the facts, the evidence that lead to the truth to come out. And there will be a point in time where you're either going to have the medical examiner or you're going to have this captain that's going to get up and he's going to explain what happened. And they're going to put together the timeline, and they will explain that at the right time. So
really the tragedy here, obviously the 3 dead, but the much bigger tragedy, Stace on the case even says it, kids are dying left and right. I was asked to come back to work a little bit at CBS in Miami about 2 years ago when that horrible building collapse happened here in South Florida. And just in the short period of time that I was back, I did multiple fentanyl OD stories, including the 3 or 4 West Point cadets. So this is a massive tragedy. Somehow at STS, we find a way to find dark humor. And today it happens to be with Phil's Tallywhacker. Nancy Lynn says, I'm peeing my pants laughing right now. Tallywhacker, I guess it's no H in there, is the best part of the movie Porky's. Porky's has to be one of the great time movies. Beulah Ballbricker was the woman in that movie. Haven't seen it since. Scott Duffy, did you see Porky's back in the day?
Yeah, you know what? I don't remember it, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
I don't think Scott was old enough to go to Porky's.
It was I'm
sure you can see it on the interwebs, Netflix somewhere.
I'm sure you can. Ned Smith, she's spelling it with a WH. I'd like to know the official spelling just for my own peace of mind. Tallywhacker is in the Oxford Dictionary. It is not regional to Texas. Scott Duffy, my serious question to you, by the way, Phil did mention it. Jordan Willis, 38 years old, the renter who's now out of that rental home, came out just a day or so ago and said he's now facing his addiction head on. Sometimes these are wake-up calls, and he has checked himself into rehab, which is kind of crazy. So he's, obviously dealing with a problem there. And then I want to play some video we have here, Scott Duffy. But my question to you after this video, Scott, is this story aside, and it's a tragic story, how big an issue is this fentanyl issue? It appears to be one of the biggest of our time when it comes to the drug, the so-called war on drugs here. This is from News Nation, by the way. This is the reporter that Phil was talking about earlier, Alex Capriello. Someone there gave him video. This is the the home renter, Jordan Willis. Right when police pulled up that day, a neighbor across the street didn't know what was going on, so they do what everyone does and started filming. And the homeowner was detained for a period of time in handcuffs. So let's watch this for a minute.
I was just going, turn off all my lights. I was getting ready for bed, locking the doors. I went to lock my front door, and I saw a woman come out of the backyard on her phone, and she looked distressed because she kept looking back towards the house, and I thought it was weird. But I just moved in, so I really didn't know much, and so I just went back to my room. 10 minutes later, I saw an ambulance drive by, and I said, well, that's just weird. Something's going on. Went to the front room, looked out, and I saw that there was already 3 cop cars, and there was a man detained, and the woman was talking to the other police. And basically, I kind of watched that conspire for an hour or two. The man eventually left. The police searched the house, went through the backyards and everything, and I had no idea what had happened. And the next morning, I saw the news that they had found 3 dead bodies, and I just was kind of in disbelief. I was like, wow, I watched that happen. So basically, I was just going, turn off all my lights.
I'm just pausing right there. It's very dark, but underneath that front door light, that is where Jordan Willis, he wasn't arrested, but he was handcuffed and detained. Scott Duffy, back to my other question. You're a drug czar of sorts, having dealt in the industry for years at the FBI. How do you compare this fentanyl crisis to other things that you've seen? Is this as bad as it? I mean, to me, it scares the crap out of me, and I'll tell you why. I live in Miami. Thankfully, my kids are too young still, but all it takes is going out one night with your friends in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or the great state of Florida, and your friend says, hey, take this pill or do a line of cocaine. In the 80s, you could do that, and you got away with it. Now you do that, you make one small stupid mistake, it could cost you your life. So how serious or how problematic has this fentanyl crisis become in our country today? Is this the worst you've seen it?
Yeah, it's absolutely the worst I've seen it. And when it started to come out, fentanyl, and then of course all the other synthetic forms of it, and the fact that it really is coming from very China and so forth, very specific places, as opposed to so for example, coke and weed were my drugs of choice in the world of investigation. So what did I educate and learn? Who were my supply cities? Delaware is not a supply city; it's a receipt city. And spent a couple of times in Houston being a supply city, and then of course Arizona and so forth. So you have but they're not manufacturing. It's coming, of course, from your cartels just over the border, and I totally agree with Phil. They don't care. They know that the hunger for this in the United States is great. The local dealers I dealt with were not looking to off their customers, but something has changed 7-8 years, and it is getting worse. And the fact that I really don't see the alarms that we should be seeing, both politically and elsewhere, in order to really put an end to this. Think about it: 70,000 on average. Those are deaths. Think about how many more, triple, quadruple. I don't know if there's a number out there of actual ODs, but then come back from getting Narxalone and whatnot, and the repeatedness nature of. It's hard for me to understand as a non-addict, but having it hit very close to home, I understand it and I sympathize with it. But from a supply and dealer and so forth, and the fact that it's growing, and people are dying, and of course many public safety, law enforcement, ambulance, if somehow come in contact a little bit on somebody's clothing or whatnot, they've been overcome. And so I have to step back and wonder what is the bigger picture here, because if that many people are dying and there's not like a change to want to stop it, like law enforcement can only react. So our job, you try to deter, but our job is to react, and so thereby, I don't know what's happening. I would liken it almost to acts of terror. If somebody who's providing this knows it's going to kill and is pushing it onto another country, how can that not be treated like an act of terror, as opposed to, well, drug is a choice, and if you take it, you take it, and you gamble your life and so forth. But with fentanyl, there really isn't that choice. It's instant, and if somebody's not around you to provide that saving antidote, you're done. And it's happening in the tens of thousands per year, as opposed to a spike. There are spikes throughout with epidemics of drugs and so forth, but this seems like it's now going to so many years and I do not see any effort across the board, government on down, to really raise the alarm. It's somewhat of a phenomenon to me, and it's scary because not only having kids, but seeing that it's really all around us. And
The only thing I can make an analogy to growing up in the 80s is crack cocaine, Fil Waters. I remember in Harlem, spent a lot of time in New York City because I live nearby, but there still is a famous mural that says crack is whack. Is this worse than crack cocaine of the 80s, Fil Waters? Because this kills you, right?
I mean, that's like asking you, would you rather be shot or stabbed? I mean, if the result's going to be the same, when I was working narcotics, that's when crack first started coming into the horizon, and that's the purest form of cocaine. So all the additives and derivatives are all boiled out of it. It forms a little cracker, for lack of a better term, a little disc, a little cookie, and then it's cut up into these rocks. And in those days, when we would get the street dealer on the corner and he'd see the popo coming, what was his first instinct? Swallow what he had, and it killed him. You can't ingest a pure form of a highly toxic substance like that and not understand the result is most probably going to be death. So, to me, comparing crack cocaine with fentanyl is a distinction without a difference. I'll put it that way.
Phil, I got to ask, would you rather be shot or stabbed, Fil Waters?
Neither one.
Neither one. Nerea Sanchez. So the friend, Scott Duffy, survivor, provider, Jordan Willis is his name, can't be charged with involuntary manslaughter. Is that Fil Waters getting his panties in a wad?
Yeah.
Scott Duffy.
Yeah. Ken, I would say Ken is a key word, and Ken is the investigation. So there are a few times before I left that the U.S. Attorney's Office, and this was in the region, the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, District of Delaware, etc., where they were starting to charge dealers with homicides. Something where you can, if you can show the dealer knew what they were selling, and that the evidence was out there that they had the mindset, the criminal intent, and so forth, then they were being charged. They were rare. They are hard cases to prove. So yeah, it's definitely a thought. It's an investigation. What did the host know, the provider, if in fact the host, like Phil said, who brought it in? It could have been 5, 6, 7, 8 people bringing in different things. You have five, but let's just say, for argument's sake, it is traced back to one person, one dealer, one whoever brought that in. That it's still a tough case, but if the individual knows that, hey, fentanyl kills, I'm bringing it in, I'm not telling anybody what I'm doing with it, and let's just see what happens. You still, it's a very difficult high bar to, but I would say it can be introduced, it can be brought to the prosecutor's office. But they are far and few in between, and I just, it would be tough, but it's not, I wouldn't say automatically you can't go down that road, but man, it's tough.
Tell you what, Scott and Fil Waters are both getting words in edgewise, something you won't see on traditional media. I won't mention other shows. Jonathan Price, who is Ricky Johnson's brother, he said that one of the other victims was found in a lawn chair, as opposed to lying flat down. He says, as a brother, I'm looking at everything, and then went on to say that he's not happy with the police, Fil Waters. It's the same every day, with the lack of answers and the inability to truly mourn without any cause. This guy, Jonathan Price, said, I want to be involved more. My mother and Ricky's father want to be involved more, and we're just not getting answers from the investigation. Speaking of the investigation, this is a little macabre, a little dark, but the stepmother of one of the 3 Kansas City Chiefs fans said she had to identify the son's body, the stepson's body, over the phone because, Fil Waters, the remains still needed to thaw out. She said they told us that the bodies had to thaw out. They were frozen, and it could have possibly taken days for them to unfreeze. So when asked to go in person, she was told that that's something you only see in the movies. They don't need people to identify the bodies. But she did ID them over the phone through piercings and tattoos. What's all that about, Phil? I thought you do have to go in person to identify a body, or no? And it's kind of crazy that it was too frozen to identify Fil Waters.
Look, I don't know what their procedure is. This is an unusual occurrence. I think this is the lady that was on Banfield, interviewed there. I think she's been one of the first ones to come out and say stuff. Heart goes out to her, but look, I think whatever was going on there, I wasn't there. I don't know. But the law enforcement people that were there trying to find out what was going on, doing their initial field investigation, so forth and so on, and got to the point where they felt like there needed to be some identification made, to a positive ID as to who these people were, and that's what they did. Now, that's horrible, but I'm just assuming that it accomplished an investigative question, and it was done. So, I mean, I understand her perspective, I really do, but I'm just saying that, listen, working homicide is a tough job. And when homicide cops show up at a front door or make a phone call, they're not there to tell you something good. They're not there to spread some good news. So you're already starting at a horrible, on the spectrum. You're already there at the lowest part of it in terms of the news you're about to deliver, and it's bad news. So that may have happened just the way she said it happened. And I'm not going to, there must have been a reason why they did it that way. I can't think of any, I may have shown a picture to someone to get a positive ID because we had no other means by which to do that. And I've had people show up to do an ID, and it was not their loved one. So I'm just telling you, each investigation is unique, and there may have been a reason why they did it that way. So I'm not going to criticize the police, and I'm not going to criticize her response to that. So I mean, it's just not good. The whole thing is not good.
It's not. Kate Wolf says people die in multiples from fentanyl every day in this country. By the way, that is what killed Michael Jackson. No, that was propofol, I think. Actually,
That was propofol. Yeah,
propofol.
he was
just getting pumped up,
and medicating.
Yeah, his doctor, I think, went
the
to
doctor.
prison for that. Yeah. But people are dying. What is the answer? I have no idea. Ned Smith says that's hard. Yes, it is. It really is. It really is beyond a tragedy because, again, these aren't people dying of this aren't necessarily drug addicts. And that's not to say that drug addicts deserve to die, but these are people who literally could be, the all-star quarterback of the high school team, the proverbial character there who goes out one night with his high school sweetheart girlfriend and they try something because someone says to try it, and that's it. They're dead. This is killing people who are not drug addicts, who are just maybe trying something one time, making a critical mistake, and tragic. Space Coast, apparently I sent you an email from I'm Not T-Pain. Would love to get that bad boy up there. Space, thank you. Let's switch gears here. It's getting too depressing for me. Propofol, someone is saying, has to be injected. Fleur de Lis says this is it is a depressing subject, and people don't like to talk about depressing things, and that's part of the problem. So here at STS, we love to talk about depressing things. No, in all seriousness, you have a child, a teenager, let's say, have a conversation with your teenager, scare the crap out. Scott Duffy, do you scare the crap out of your teenagers? Do you say to them, look, I am a former FBI, I'm a retired FBI agent. I worked the drug trade for my career. I know what this can do, young kids. Don't do anything stupid. Do you say that to your kids, Scott?
I wish it was that easy. No, I just think as a result of...
How do you scare them? What do you say to them?
I think as I've talked about my work when I would come home and not too gory detail, but enough that I think it just be kind of rubbed off, and I hope that enough was said. Yeah, I'm all for the hard discussions because once they go off into reality to live on their own, whether it be college or other things, it's they're on their own and they're making hopefully decisions that you've kind of given enough for them to make the right choices. But I agree with you, Joel. You said it before that there are many who suffer a tragic loss and are not addicted. I have not gone down a long road of addiction, but try something and then it's a one and done. That's it, and it's a very tragic reality.
By the way, I'm no fan of smoking, and smoking kills. And I know a couple of friends of mine who died of cancer related to smoking. So I've told my young children, this is the other side of speaking to your kids, Scott Duffy. I've told my kids 10, 8, almost 10, 8 currently, and almost 5. I've said to them, don't smoke. It is not good for you. It's like if you were inhaling the tailpipe fumes from the car. That's the analogy I make. But the problem is, Scott Duffy, we'll go out like last night to the pet supermarket, and they'll see people smoking outside the store. And my kid goes, "That guy's smoking. He's dumb. He's dumb." And I have to say, J-Mac, settle down. Don't yell. You don't. Number one, you don't point. Number two, you don't yell. And number three, you don't throw your father under the bus. But my point is, it's tough to win either way. You know, you point out.
I think you ought to be proud of the fact that he did that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The lesson was learned. Let's hope he retains it.
Yes, thank you, Phil. You know what? I feel better now that Uncle Phil told me that. I feel better. Look at this from Ned Smith. I hope you feel better soon. Thanks for plowing through when you don't feel 100%. You are no tallywhack. Is anyone confirmed as a tallywhack? I need to know. WHA or WACK? By the way, big monumental day for STS this Sunday, 5 p.m. You probably heard of this guy. He's only one of America's best-known authors, and he wrote, you'll see the 2 books up there. Tuesdays with Morrie is his massive bestseller, still the #1 memoir of all time. And his new book, believe it or not, is a Holocaust story about someone who had to tell a lie to survive. That's why it's called The Little Liar. What's interesting about that is Carm, the woman you see on the left, she too had a lie to a degree. You know, she was hidden in a Catholic school for boys to survive the war, and most people did not know that she was a little girl hiding out as a little boy. So just the weird serendipitous nature of the fact that I met Mitch Albom at the time I was writing this book, and his new book intersects with my mom's story in a weird way. That is this Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. This Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Please don't miss it. It'll be really interesting. What I'm hoping to do is say hello and then just kick back and listen to Carm and Mitch talk. And by the way, Mitch is also a very prominent sports writer from Detroit. So condolences to him on his Detroit Lions. But I will say that to him, publicly. And by the way, I don't know if you guys know, I've written a book, and there's the QR code. Pre-orders are out, and working on the audio stuff. Look at this right here, right on cue. When is your audio book coming out? We're working on all that right now. It's going to be mid-March. And Mitch is from Detroit. He is Detroit native, basically. He's actually, believe it or not, I found out he's from New Jersey, because all great people are originally from New Jersey, but spent the majority of his life in Detroit. As we always do, we recap the rest of the week's true crime stories. Sorry, Rachel. She was just getting over the grief from the Lions. But look, you've got the University of Michigan, Michigan versus everybody. Your college team won the national championship. So don't get greedy on me, Rachel. Okay. We are switching over to Kohberger briefly. Of course, it is Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, her best friend, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, who all died in that horrific attack. Fil Waters, no real surprise. Brian Kohberger's defense team filed for a change of venue, and Ann Taylor, his attorney, wrote the following. I will read it to you. A fair and impartial jury cannot be found in Latah County, Idaho, owing to the extensive inflammatory pretrial publicity, allegations made about Mr. Kohberger to the public by media that will be inadmissible at his trial, the small size of the community, the salacious nature of the alleged crimes, and the severity of the charges Mr. Kohberger faces. She put that into a motion for the court, into a filing, and went on to say that Moscow, it is the seat of Latah County and home to actually about half of its roughly 40,000 population. So half of the population of the county lives in Moscow. Will they get some sort of change of venue, or at least jurors from a different county? Do you think?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you if you think that this will go anywhere. Will they at least get jurors? Because they're talking change of venue, but one of the things is maybe they just bring in jurors from a different county. Do you think that could happen?
Well, I think if I were the judge, I would grant him the change of venue. And I think, and my opinion is just me, is that I think they should have a change of venue. So I would be surprised if the judge does not allow it, does not grant it.
Yeah. Scott Duffy and Taylor, Brian Koberg's defense attorney, went on to write, enlarging the jury pool will not do anything to overcome that pervasive prejudicial publicity because Latah County does not have a large enough population center to avoid the bias in the community. Further, the size of the community and the interconnectedness of its citizenry is problematic and will prevent a fair and impartial pool of potential jurors. If you were judge on this case, would you do what Fil just said? Would you at least bring in jurors, at the very least, from a different county to sit through this trial? Would you give them some sort of concession?
Yes, I agree. It's a very difficult when you have such, and not only all the publicity nationwide, but especially for a small and local community, but also the time that's passing between the murders and a subsequent trial date. You continue to increase that danger of where do you get a good jury pool. So yeah, I think the judge has to make a decision, that's going to not necessarily benefit the defense, but definitely avoid any issues in a potential appeal down the road. So it'd be a good move to get ahead of it.
Ned Smith points out, Abby actually emailed me to say hello a week ago, but I have not seen her. Fil, and that is Phil's stepdaughter. She's a Kansas City fan, but I want the Niners.
No, she's not my stepdaughter. She's my adopted daughter.
Correct. You're right. 100%.
And she sent me pictures of her new puppy dog, who they named Millard Fillmore, and they call him Mills.
That's awesome. Mills. We should call you Mills, Phils. Look at this. I think we have this ready to go. Haven't looked at it yet. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Get your tallywhacker.
Is that your brother-in-law? Who is that?
No. That is you, looking very lean.
No. Who is this on the ground looking at the book?
Just a random guy that the meme queen, I am not T-Pain, found. But Fil, what was your guy's tallywhacker stuck into
An
earlier?
expansion joint.
What is
in
it? What is an
concrete? And it was freezing outside, so it was not only stuck in the expansion joint, but it was stuck to the expansion joint.
What is an expansion joint? What is an expansion joint? I don't know what that is.
When you pour concrete, you have joints in between the panels of concrete that allow for the concrete to expand without cracking. So therefore you have an expansion joint. And usually there's put when I was pouring concrete, when I was in construction, you would there'd be a strip of wood in the joint itself to allow for further expansion.
I'm not T-Pain. I really would hate to push my luck in any way, shape, or form, but if there's any way to maybe recreate another one of these where the person who is, I always forget, is that prone or prostate on the ground? Like when you're laying stomach down, Fil, what is that? Is that prostate?
No, that's prone. You're proned out.
Prone. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not T-Pain. Is there a way to get him, whoever this person is, naked on a pavement? Fil doesn't have to be naked, but I guess it was a very chilly day, and this looks like a beautiful spring day, but I can't get over it how lean Scott Duffy. Look at Fil. Look at Fil. Look how lean and athletic he looks there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. But meme queen, you did a phenomenal job as always. phenomenal job. And I don't know, what can I tell you? Not only do we have the best true crime stories, the best guests, the better community. And look at this. Yes, this is true. Ned Smith point. He's reading Survive. I tell you, I have a book coming out. It's right here. You can order it right there. And we have a new channel, by the way. Best trials in true crime. We've been covering the Michelle Tratonis trial. Let's move it along here. From one crazy killer to looks like another one. This Rex Heuermann, Scott Duffy. This lawyer, this is interesting. John Ray, who I've been in contact with periodically. He's basically the lawyer for the victims, and I will get him on the show. He says now publicly that he wants investigators to take a closer look at Rex Heuermann's wife, saying that new evidence may contradict claims that she was never around. And he's talking specifically during the murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes. So far, she's not been accused of anything, but he had a symposium at St. John's University this past week and says that she keeps pointing to some hotel room in Atlantic City, but he has dug deeper and basically found out that it's not a hotel, it's a timeshare. And the dates don't necessarily match up. And with a timeshare, no one's really watching your comings and goings. My question to you, do investigators need to go back and take a very hard look at this Asa Ellerich, the wife of Rex Heuermann? She has, there's been some DNA found, and she's, I guess, admitted to being at some of these swingers parties. Does a closer look need to be taken at her, Scott Duffy?
I'm not so sure. A closer look as opposed to, where are they in their investigation? I've heard this for some time. I think it came out early on, so I'm sure law enforcement, I believe, especially here, it just seems like they've put in this task force together. They've done a really good job to get to where they're at today. But the what people say and conjecture and what evidence points where are two different things. And so if they've interviewed everybody that they need to, including the wife and so forth, then it's I'm sure they're always open to it. But if the evidence is not crying out, arrest me, then it sounds like they're taking cautious steps and following that evidence, but you can't just lock her up because there's some indication.
By the way, for the Mitch album episode, I know this is asking a lot on Sunday at 5:00, but I'd like to have 3 million people in the chat just to show Mitch album that we are serious here at STS Nation. If you guys can, and by the way, Carm is really going to be hosting that. So if you guys can show your STS pride that day and just show Mitch album that we're not a 2-bit little podcast, I would greatly appreciate it. Fil Waters, something here is also quite disturbing, and I think you'll find it disturbing. So at this symposium, which is a little odd, that John Ray, this victim's attorney, had, he also released some kind of new sworn affidavit signed by a woman, because he's dealing with people that were in the scene back in the 90s and 2000s. So one woman, only identified by the pseudonym Alice Poe, as in Edgar Allan Poe, but this is Alice Poe. She alleges in an affidavit provided to this attorney, John Ray, that she met Rex Heuermann in 1993. But what's weird about this, Fil Waters, at that party was one-time Suffolk County Police Commissioner, this very controversial guy named James Burke. He was at that party. It was at a Budget Inn along Montauk Highway. This is a signed affidavit. This guy, James Burke, at the time, who went on to become commissioner, was a young police officer who had recently transferred from the NYP to Long Island. Burke, as I said, would go on to become chief of Suffolk County Police. He's been criticized for cultivating a culture of rampant corruption, and he concealed his own nefarious proclivities, which allegedly included patronizing sex workers and consuming hard drugs. Not long ago, he was arrested for soliciting male prostitution.
Mhm.
Do they need to take a closer look at this James Burke character? This is he's a strange guy doing strange things, but a one-time top law enforcement official. How do you negotiate that? What do you have to do with this guy?
Well, they need to investigate him, and he's been investigated. I mean, but not in the realm of the larger investigation with this evildoer. So, yeah, and I, gosh, I got to believe they are looking at that, the circumstances when he was there as a young officer, when he was there as the commissioner, whatever job he had in that area at the same time that all these murders were occurring. I'm sure there, and given his recreational goings ons, which has just been further confirmed with this most recent arrest. So this guy, yeah, there's something wrong with this guy. And it's just a matter of, if what is wrong with him, is there in any way, shape, or form, is it attached to the investigation with the serial killings in Long Island? So, yeah, I would think they are looking at him pretty hard.
Yeah, it is. Here we go from someone on Long Island, Nancy Lynn, 27. I live on Long Island. Burke is the reason no one was allowed to investigate Gilgo or the Medford killings. He seems like let's put it this way, an unstable human being, to say the least. Ned Smith says Rex is the ultimate and quintessential tallywhacker, coming full circle here. Someone else is saying, I don't know what this even means. Look into Huerman's cousin. I'm sure they're looking into family members. I've never heard about the cousin until now. But moving along here, Scott Duffy, this comes from I feel like every week now we've got a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania story, and this one is a disturbing one, and I am pretty sure you will have heard of this. Police have charged a Pennsylvania man with murder after he allegedly posted a video rant to YouTube. You're on YouTube right now, showing a decapitated head of his own father. He was found beheaded in their home. Justin Mohn, or Mon, I don't know how to pronounce, Mohn. He was taken into custody by Middletown. This is very hard because it's Middletown followed by Township. Middletown Township Police Department, and charged with first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and possession of an instrument of crime, according to the court docket reviewed by People magazine. Now, this is Bucks County. Scott Duffy, how far is Bucks County from you? Does this stun, surprise, or shock you that this guy on YouTube was holding a bag with his father's head in it, Scott Duffy?
You're getting close. It's so I'll answer. Bucks County, neighbors to my county, Montgomery County.
By the way, Scott, I got to interrupt for 1 second. You know I hate to do this. Did you ever watch the TV show Banshee? Has anyone seen Banshee? It takes place in Banshee, Pennsylvania. It's got to be one of the craziest stories that I've ever. Hold on 1 sec. We're getting an update on a new family member.
Got scared, so she went outside.
Okay. Poke your head in here and tell STS. That's Vita.
Hey, Vita. How are you?
At the end of the show, should we share a new family member?
Yeah.
Okay. So come back in, I have no idea. Come back in 20 minutes.
Okay.
Love you. You look good.
Thank you.
You look like what's her name from, what's her name? The girl from Friday from what's that show? I don't know. Anyway, Addams Family. She looks like
She
my
looks
daughter.
like her mom.
Wednesday. Is that her name? Wednesday.
She looks like Ileana. You don't have to go outside the family.
Yeah.
She's beautiful, just like her mama is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Look at this. Oh, the real star of the family. This is true. Oh, everyone's telling me I said Friday. It's Wednesday. happens. Yeah. Now the other one's coming. All right, come back in 20 minutes. I told her I'm on a. Oh, she wants to say hi. There. Glad I have shy kids. Middle of a show. Come on, come say hello. That's
Hi.
easy. Okay.
Hi.
Is he cute?
It's so cute. Fred? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, Fred's really cute.
Okay, we'll bring him 20 minutes. Give me some time. Back off.
Oh, yeah.
Respect your father. All right. Scott, I don't even know where you were. I'm sorry, but basically, what stuns me so much about this guy did this on YouTube. What's going on? 2024, you can decapitate your father and then hold his head up on YouTube. Why is this happening? And why is there not something in place on YouTube that prevents? I get notices because of the silliest things, but someone can hold up a head on YouTube. What's going on, Scott?
Yeah. I did see it. It reminded me of some of the ISIS early on videos that were making it through before they got taken down. But it's a neighboring county. The actual town is probably less than a half hour from me. So I've gone through neighboring Levittown, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So that's the location. And wow, having read up on this one, the sadness is too. It does not seem like it's a surprise. There seems to be some evidence of foretelling. Not that everybody does what they foretell to, but with some other things, I think they will uncover. It does seem like there is, whether diagnosed or not, it just seems like there's some severe mental health things happening, very much so here, and so a lot of things going on inside of his head, and I know at least from what is inside his head and what he's put out there that he did it as a result to bash the federal government and ordered like-minded people to go out and behead or to cause injury to of course my former director and some other notable federal officials, right? So there's a lot going on there, and it's just a sad that his father end up suffering the ultimate. It's
By the way, Stace makes a good point. The algorithms did not catch that one. You might want to get on that. I know Zuckerberg doesn't own YouTube, but it's the only name I know. So Zuckerberg and Elon, you better get on that. Fil Waters, you've told me many times, this sounds like this guy's deranged beyond a comprehensible level of derangement, but who knows what triggered him. But by all accounts, he was, this was a very tight-knit family with siblings. They spent, time together, a lot of time together. According to the criminal complaint, this man identified as Michael Mon had been, this is the father now, had been decapitated. A machete was observed in the bathtub, as well as a large kitchen knife. They also found rubber gloves with what appeared to be blood on them. It was determined that the victim's adult son had left the home and taken his father's vehicle. The police added, with the help of multiple other agencies, Justin was located and taken into custody in Fort Indiantown Gap, wherever that is. But it was too late. It was a 14-minute video that he was able to post on YouTube, saying that his own father, and this is a quote, "He is now in hell for eternity." Fil Waters, disturbing beyond disturbing on many levels. Is this just, in your opinion, the case of someone with a severely damaged brain, a mentally ill brain, beyond any way for someone without a brain like that to fully understand what was going on?
Well, I don't know. You use the term damaged. I mean, he's obviously got, and I go back to what I've always said. These types of incidents, to whatever degree they're carried out, they're a problem with the heart and the head. And this guy I think he was in the process of suing the federal government, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he had some real issues with
he he had some interaction with the feds that he thought was uncalled for, or was punishing him or oppressing him, whatever. And who knows what was going on beforehand, but something triggered that. And I believe he either lost the lawsuit or they threw it out or something. But all the things he was trying to accomplish were being waylaid. And to the degree that his parents were involved, I mean, who knows? Had a discussion with his father, and his father read him the riot act and said, you need to knock it off. And he didn't like that answer. And in a moment there, that set him off. And he wasn't going to listen to it, because now I'm sure he's thinking that his father is an agent of the government. And I'm just speculating here. But
yeah,
something obviously set him off that caused him to do what he did. And so I'm not, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I think we've talked about this several cases, 2 or 3 cases that I've had where this type of thing occurred. It's just another definition of a person consumed with evil and thinks they've got to void themselves of by carrying out an act like this that is shocking to the conscience, to a normal person. So it'll be interesting to see if they, his defense attorneys, it'll be interesting to see what they offer as a defense in this thing. I would not be terribly surprised if they offer up an insanity defense, which is a very high bar, at least in Texas it is. And so I think my sense is with this guy, just looking at him and committing this kind of an act, the basis for insanity in Texas is you have to know that what you did was wrong. You have to have that understanding.
I mean, if you can't get a defense, insanity defense on this, I can't imagine where you could get one. Fil Waters.
Well, he may be crazy. He may be crazy, but that doesn't make him insane.
Phil, I think someone's taking a little cheap joke shot at you here, saying, could it be in the marijuana, Phil?
Could what be in the marijuana?
I guess
I'll have to clarify that question.
I think that that he flipped
out. What does
but
that mean? I don't even know what that means. Could it be in the marijuana? Sure. Okay, there you go. Yeah, sure.
Fil Waters, my question to you, being that you have, you can say what you want about Fil Waters, but until you walked in this guy's shoes and seen the things that this guy's done and seen, and other network news correspondents can think, their hosts can think that they know better. Fil Waters has been there and done it. So everyone, you come and yell at me, but Phil has been there many, many times over a many, many, many year career with more success than pretty much any other detective in this country. So before you come yelling at me about Fil Waters, you better look at his body of work. Thank you, Miss Brazy. $10 super sticker. Phil, where I was going before I lost my cool for a minute is the following. You sadly been in scenes like this. They thought this was sort of a joke because they were seeing it, on YouTube, and he was literally holding a bag, and people were like, there's no way this. But then first responders and homicide detectives like yourself show up there, and they found this unbelievably gruesome scene. What is going to be the long-term impact for the homicide detectives and those who saw this head rolling around on the ground?
You talking to me again?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, look, I don't know what the experience level is in that town. I don't know what their homicide rate is. I don't know what those guys have seen or not seen, but I can tell you that you know, the 3 decapitations that I was involved in, I can still see them. I mean, I don't lay awake at night, but I mean, I can still visualize those things, and it's more of a, I guess it's more of an academic reoccurrence than it is something that I guess I got to the point where, unless it was a baby or a child or an innocent, I mean, a truly innocent victim of whatever sex they may have been, you know, male or female. Those would stick to me in the sense that I can think back of those things and just remember and recall the feelings of great sadness, seeing something like this and seeing a young child or a baby or someone whose potential has been snuffed out. And so, yeah, that's those things affect any homicide cop. But you know, Lord puts you where He wants you, and He gives homicide cops the ability to be able to deal with these things, and hopefully, again, bring about a measure of justice for these families and friends that are affected by it, and a sense of peace. So, yeah, this is going to be a case. Those guys, they will not forget, certainly.
Space Coast, I think we have a new offering from I Am Not T-Pain. I would love to see that. Thank you. So final story of the day. This one is a spoiler alert. So if you have not seen the show American Nightmare on Netflix, we can't post it. I didn't really look at it. Is it graphic, Space Coast?
Can't be more graphic than what took place in Bucks County.
Yeah.
Him outside with Ethel and they were playing, so he might be a little slobbery.
All right, just I need 10 minutes, please. Are we doing it now?
No.
Oh, then let's do it now.
So we have a new puppy, but
Okay.
We have a new puppy.
You didn't build it up. See, all right, let's bring it in. Let's bring in the family here. We have one more story, but it's never too early. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
Is that some sort of doodle?
This is a pug.
That's
Now
a pug?
that's a pug, but he's he's very
right.
cute.
A black pug. You know,
He's
that
chocolate. He's chocolate, super rare.
Okay.
Chocolate with vanilla. Now let me tell everyone the full name. We're breaking this here. Carm does not know about this. When Carm finds out, she's gonna lose her crap. But
she's gonna flip out.
I know people are gonna think I'm strange and it's my COVID, but everyone knows I lost my beloved Mabel Rose. I knew her before my wife, my kids. As a matter of fact, Mabel Rose came out of my belly 17 years ago. 17 years ago, Mabel Rose came out of my belly. And so this dog here, because we have Ethel.
Ethel and Fred.
His name is Fred.
He wants to be with you.
Fred and Ethel. However, his full name.
I love Lucy. I love Lucy.
Now, because I truly believe that this dog embodies the spirit of Mabel Rose, his full name is Frederick Milton Roosevelt Brown. Now, Milton was my grandfather, and it's the M for Mabel, and Roosevelt is the R for Rose. So his name is Frederick Milton Roosevelt Brown.
Fred and Daddy's arms.
And he looks absolutely
you can literally hold him in one hand.
he looks a little miserable to be here. When Carm finds this out, we will videotape it and we will post it on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. She's going to curse me out.
And stay tuned. And Ned Smith got it right. Frederick Milton Roosevelt Brown Waldman. And within this body right here, Vita's letting me know that he has a tallywhacker. He just whispered he has a tallywhacker, but she used a different word. And let me just say one thing. It is my absolute conviction that Mabel Rose lives, her spirit lives within the body of Frederick Milton Roosevelt Brown.
Pugs are good. They're good little dogs. I bought my mom a pug.
Oh my God, he's so freaking cute.
Okay, everyone get lost now.
Okay.
I bought my mom a pug on her birthday one year. It was a blonde pug, and her name was Muffin. So they are cute dogs. They're good dogs.
Wow.
Can I show you?
Everyone get lost now.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of a show. Train your dog, pick up its poop, and clean up after it. I was out in the yard cleaning up Ethel's earlier. That's fine. Perfect. They're leaving the door open now. So final story here, everyone. It's always something on Surviving the Survivor. Again, Frederick Milton Roosevelt Brown. What does this say? I sent Joel my puggy Louis fawn, blonde is fawn. Yes. Final story. This might have some spoiler alerts here, but Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn, they're the two people from this Netflix show called American Nightmare. The premise of this show, Scott Duffy, this is a true documentary, and I had heard this story. I'm about to, these are spoiler alerts here, so close your ears if you don't want to hear it. This is a couple who claimed that they were, Scott Duffy, that they were home invaded in the middle of the night at gunpoint with tasers and all kinds of weird things by a group of men. And then where the girlfriend or the fiance was taken hostage for a ransom, and she goes missing, and all eyes turn on the fiance. The story is a very outrageous one. They come in, they've got military style scopes on their rifles. They're being tased, they're being drugged, they're being poisoned. It sounded very far-fetched. And what this police department in Northern California did was say to the guy, you did this. Tell us where the body is. And it just amplifies and gets worse and worse over time. And what you eventually come to find out, I'm just going to blow the whole story right here, but what you eventually come to find out is they were both the targets of a real crime. And it turned out the guy who was committing this crime was a Harvard-educated lawyer who was living at his mother's little cabin in Lake Tahoe. But all the police interviews are, you did this, you committed this crime. All the public sentiment, all the media outlets, everyone said this was crazy. And then one day she shows up, she's dropped off the woman who was taken hostage, held at ransom. She's dropped off at her parents' house, and they say, well, now she set everyone up. She was guilty. So they both had the finger pointed at them by police and the media and were believed to be the culprits in this crime. And then you find out it was an actual criminal. I think the moral of the story here, Scott Duffy, is I would have done that because I already convicted the Chiefs home renter guy. But do you have to go into investigations with a truly open mind? By the way, they're trying to, as a result of this documentary, there was no civil suit, I don't think, ever brought. Nothing ever came of it. The lead detective was basically just untouched, but they're trying to get him fired from his job now. It really shows you how important and a real good investigation is, but also the importance of a criminal defense attorney. Do you have any thoughts on this, Scott Duffy, without having seen it?
I did see it. It was amazing.
Oh. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Is this the show that's on Netflix?
Yeah, you better watch it, Fil Waters.
Yeah, I've got it. Excuse me, I have it on my list to watch. I've not watched it yet, but yes.
3-part series. Your wife will explain everything to you.
It's the yeah, it's and you left out there's 2 FBI agents too that are part of that story. And so I've watched it I watched it from the interviewer point of view to see how the interviews are done. I think just as we saw the New Canaan, Connecticut, where there were like 100 detectives or whatever in that room going after the
They won
individuals.
$2.5 million. I stand corrected. There was a civil settlement, and the
Yeah.
chief was replaced.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the lead detective and the guy who was doing all the PIO, the public information work, he was taking the lead from the chief, but they were bashing these people left and right. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. So on two sides from what I saw. Now, remember, everything is edited. So we saw for the sake of the show, we saw the worst, I believe, of if in fact law enforcement did not believe and did not follow the evidence and thereby had what they, was in their head, and ignored the possibility that such an outlandish story could actually be true. That's one thing, right? Then, and that's an example of, wow, you are you're victim shaming, right in every imaginable video. In that regard, it's pretty, from the interview point of view, it's pretty sad. But I don't know if there are other parts of the video that were not part of it. So I would love to see the whole video from law enforcement side to see if in fact, because it's one thing to play the bad guy, to say, hey, this is not, I don't believe you, but to go hard at them, but then all of a sudden to say, okay, now, I tried and I apologize for being hard with you, but now I see your point of view. So I just don't know if the videos, if law enforcement videos do not show any sense of a change to where it really is just a trick or a dynamic, so be it. It's not something I would do. I can see, I would bet to say Phil, after he watches it, would easily find that as well. But it is an outlandish story, and if law enforcement quickly, depending on if were they following the evidence or not, from what, at least from what I see in the show, that everything is coming down. In other words, the chief is running the investigation. Everybody is kind of just, he either has an idea, concoction, what took place or didn't took place. And so thereby, look what happens when you don't weigh all the evidence, or hit pause. It's nothing. There's never a bad thing to hit a pause and say, wow, take me down a little bit more so I can, but from the show part, if the video is true to that, it was disturbing, and to see victims go through that.
Yeah, and the fiance, Ned Smith's reminded me, the fiance was given a polygraph, which he, accepted, voluntarily accepted, but and he passed it. But the polygrapher said that he failed it badly. They lied to him. Kimber Miller says, Phil, can you please give your view of the detective? Phil, I would love for you to watch this when you get a chance. It's actually really well done, so it's not like going to be torture for you. And I think that your wife will greatly enjoy this. But it scared me watching this, Phil, because it was a very outlandish scenario, one that me, you, and Scott, I'm sure, sitting around the water cooler would say, oh, that's way too crazy. But what happened was the investigators
Well, I'll
said
tell you
that.
what, rather than you tell me anything,
Okay.
I would prefer to watch it with an open mind so that I don't have any.
Okay, beautiful. And then we'll come back to it next.
Preconceived conclusions.
Perfect. That's it. Phil just decided, and we will come back and we'll get Phil's take on the detective and what happened and how it all went down next week. We just got Scott Duffy's take. Scott Duffy, I always feel strange, a little peculiar, a little odd asking this, but how is the weather in the Commonwealth? You look, you're in your fleece with a long sleeve shirt, and I'm staring at palm trees.
Yeah. I mean, it's another rainy day, but it's decent. It's above freezing.
Scott, do you ever ask yourself, why do I live in a place where the skies are gray and it rains every other day of my existence? Have you ever asked yourself that question? And I know it's not easy to say,
Yeah.
let's just
It's
pick
not
up and
typical. It's not typical. I do enjoy the Four Seasons quite a bit. I'm getting
not
to
the
an age where
hotel,
I like
not the
less of
hotel,
winter. What?
not the hotel, the actual Four Seasons.
The actual Four Seasons. Yeah.
Mm.
Love it. Yeah, you don't get bored of one. You don't get locked into one. I'm growing more accustomed to my summer and fall, but the Four Seasons it's still nice. It's not too
Fil
bad.
Waters, any parting thoughts today on this Friday? The Waldmans our family has grown yet again. We now have Frederick, Milton, Roosevelt, Brown, Waldman. By the way, Phil, I've never had a male dog in my entire life, ever. Not once, not a single one. My wife's only had male dogs, so I thought it would be good. But Vita Leah, my stunningly beautiful, but more importantly, smart, and more importantly, sweet daughter. Phil, I tell my daughter, Fil Waters, you treat everyone in life the way you would like to be treated. Do you have anything that you would add to that, Phil?
Sure. It's I mean, that's right out of the Bible, right?
There you go.
We're to love one another as we love ourselves. We're to love our enemies.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful thing about Christ. That's what he talks about, is love, and he loves everyone. He loves Vita. He loves you. He loves your family, and it's an awesome experience to not only be happy in life through that relationship with him, but to understand what joy is about.
You hear that?
And I can tell you, it comes in little forms. I was telling my wife this morning, as I was putting on my clothes and getting ready to come over here to the office, and about, I don't know, I'd say a month, maybe a couple of months ago, I lost my handcuffs. And these are handcuffs that I've had, my first set of handcuffs. I've had these things for 45 years.
Wow.
And
how'd you lose them?
Well, I went into the men's room and had to have a moment on the throne. So I have to take all my crap off to, So I did that. Well, I was in a hurry because I was heading to the hospital to do my pre-surgery check-in. And so I got in the car, and in order just to not have to fool with it, I took my weapon off and my magazine and my handcuffs, and I put them in the back seat on the floorboard. So I sped to the hospital and all that good stuff, and went inside, did the deal. When I came out, my pistol and my magazine was sitting there, and the handcuffs were gone.
I have a question for you.
So hang on, Vita, hang on. So I looked under the seat, and I didn't find them. And I thought, well, I must have left them hanging on the hook in the bathroom. So I run back to the office, and I run in there. Of course, they're gone. So then I'm running around to the gals that work out here in the work lodge where I'm officed, and has anybody turned in? No, they haven't. No, they haven't. And so the next thought I had was, well, the cleaning crew must have. So I've got this all-out alert for these handcuffs, and of course I'm thinking that the cleaning crew, which were the only ones on video that were seen coming in and out of the bathroom, that one of them took my handcuffs and didn't turn them in. So I went and talked to their supervisors and blah, blah, blah. Nobody has seen my handcuff. Da, 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 da. So this goes on now for a month and a half. I'm thinking somebody on this cleaning crew has got my handcuffs.
Did you have them?
Well, here's what happened. I sped somewhere one day, and I pulled in, put the brakes on, taking off, blah blah blah, and I get home, and I open up the back door to get my satchel out, and there are my handcuffs laying on the floorboard in the back seat. So they had apparently gone way up under the seat, further than what I checked, and now here they are. So now I feel like a complete idiot for thinking that someone on the cleaning crew had taken my handcuffs. So I wrong. That was wrong of me. That was wrong. So,
It's always easy to blame someone else, Phil.
So I went back to the supervisors of the cleaning crew and asked for their forgiveness for having accused one of their people for stealing my handcuffs.
You hear that? Never too
And
late.
then I went to the girls that were working up in the front who I'd gone to initially, and I told them that story and said I was wrong. And so I got the handcuffs back. So the moral of this story is, I told my wife this morning, when I picked these handcuffs up and I put them in my belt, I have this sense of joy that I have this thing that was so important to me back. And that's the lesson. So, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And he let me suffer and condemn for a month and a half. And then finally, when he revealed what the truth was, it caused me to have to humble myself and go ask those folks for forgiveness. So, I tell that story to say this. All things great and small, the Lord will work in your life if you've accepted the gift of salvation. All things great and small to bring you moments of joy throughout your life. So that's what my prayer is for everybody out there. And for Vita, for you, for your family, for Scott, that they will come to that point in their lives.
I have a question and
enjoy the joy that brings. Go ahead, Vita. I know you're chomping at the bit.
My comment is that was a really long story.
Yes, it was. But all my stories are long.
I have a comment.
Hold on. What's the question? Hold on. One at a time.
Because I'm a detail guy.
My question is,
What?
what color?
Okay, go ahead.
What color are your Ferraris?
What color are my Ferraris? Boy, that was a big leap, right? One of them is red, one of them is Corsa red, and one of them is Giallo, which
You have
is
three?
yellow. No, I have two.
In his mind, he has three different colors, though. I saw
I'm looking at
Andy's,
a 456. There you go.
Andy's. By the way, I saw a comment, Vita, Leah, that made me think of you. We have a STS Nationer. Her name is Andy School, and she lives in Detroit, and she was saying that she crochets. Do you know what that is? You'd be excellent at that. She makes clothing, and you know who she gives it to?
Who?
The homeless. And that is what we should be doing. We should be doing things instead of talking about Ferraris. Let's do things for other people. Vita, Leah. And let me show, speaking of doing things for other people,
That's what I'm doing for my
Space Coast didn't want to bring that up, but this is it. It's another one. As you can see, it is a man stretched out. His buttocks were showing in the original. Why? Why? For what?
Can I read it?
And it says, Phil, please help me. My tallywhacker is frozen. And Phil is pointing, and it says, you got yourself into this position. Now get your tallywhacker out of there. And I will post this. The COE is yelling at me. Scott Duffy, my final question to you. Have you ever gone to the watering hole on a Friday night with Chi-Chi the chinchilla attached to your shoulder? Would you ever take that risk, that gamble?
No, but that does sound like a challenge. I'd be afraid I'd lose him. I don't think he would stick around. I think he would realize this is what I've been missing my whole life. This bar, fantastic.
And you think he would race to like a pipe or something and just disappear on you?
He would find a corner. He'd be gone.
Let me ask you another question, Scott. I have a follow-up here. For all the love that you give Chi-Chi and for all the time you spend cuddling together, do you still think that his instinct as a chinchilla is to hide out in quiet little spaces despite his love for you?
Absolutely. Be
You
free.
do-
It's with my dog. Pearl has gotten away from us 5 times now. And I don't think she would return.
Why?
She
Where
keeps
does
on-
Pearl go? What's going on in
She
his
just
Duffy
loves
house?
running. She just flees.
Do
like
you
to
have
hunt
an
her
air
down.
tag on her, Scott? Do you have an air tag on her?
I have a chip.
A chip. You need to get her an air tag. And look, where'd it go? They just stole it. It is. I get an air tag for $21. I put it on the collar and it goes in a cover like this. And it's literally on your iPhone.
Okay.
This is a new one for Fred Brown, but this is the size of his head right now, so it's not going to fit. I
So
say it every week.
send me one of those with the logo in the middle with your
Yeah.
STS.
Oh, yeah, I'll do it. I will 100% do. I don't know if I can do a logo, though, but I'll put Pearl's name on there. It'll say FBI agent Pearl Duffy. I don't even want to go here, Scott Duffy, but let's just say I'm not going to go there. How devastated would you be if Pearl took off tonight? You didn't know where she was in this cold, rainy weather. How upset would you be?
She would survive because she does like this weather. But
Just not knowing where she is, would that torture you?
it'd be tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I don't even want to go there. I say it every week. I'll say it again. I think I don't say this, but I think the worst of the COVID is behind me. I almost wept last week. COVID makes you emotional. It was tearing on and off. I don't even know why, but love these two gentlemen, Fil and Scott, ever inspirational. Fil, what is that red hat behind you over your left shoulder? Is that a hat?
Ferrari.
Oh, that's a Ferrari hat. Okay, I can see. Okay, there it is. There it is.
That's the one I wore, I think. Was it last
Yeah.
week? I wore that?
Yeah, it was last week. It was last week. Love both of you guys. You guys have a great weekend. Fil, any final thought? I feel like I didn't give you your final thought.
Oh no, I think I think I've expressed those, and I just hope and pray for everybody a great weekend, and that you're going to get you're on the downhill side of your Wuhan experience.
Thank God. It's not fun. Everyone have a great weekend. Fil, have a great Bible study. Hamburger. Scott, have a drink at the watering hole for me, and we will do this again next week. Until next time, love you, America, the Republic of Ireland, Canada, Australia, Tasmania, Gambia. Where did I get an email? I got an email from Uganda. Love you, Uganda.